Dragon Ball Z is the most popular anime in the world. You can argue with your mama about it, not me. Let's just call a spade a spade. And while other shows may come and make a name for themselves, similar to how Dragon Ball did, Dragon Ball Z consistently holds its place when it comes to anime, especially for your parents or your grandparents who may not even know what anime is, but the chances are they know the term Super Saiyan. And they definitely at least know the name Goku. At this point, I don't think it's really crazy to say that Goku's kind of synonymous with Superman. Goku's been at the Macy's Day Parade multiple times. I'm just gonna put it out there. But just, you know, he's a very iconic character at this point. But with his popularity and longevity, as usual, there will come people who hate most of the time just to be different. And then there's the other time, it's just how much the story has been retold and how many anime have taken inspiration from it and done tropes that Dragon Ball Z has done, but better, which is a thing that I will address in this video. And while this is done out of respect by authors in Japan who grew up reading Dragon Ball in the 80s or the 90s, today people have developed this idea that Dragon Ball, specifically Z, is terribly written, which is a crazy take to have. So in today's video, I want to debunk this idea, first by looking at Dragon Ball Z from the perspective of it being released today, and then the main reason why everyone thinks it's, or not everyone, but a lot of people think it's badly written. And with all that out the way, I do want to say thank you guys for the continued support that you've been showing me. I really appreciate it. Every one of you literally means the world to me because you're helping me achieve my dreams. I love you guys. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And with all of that out the way, now let's get it done. So to give the story its due diligence, especially one that has been out for almost, 45 years at this point, which is double my age, I believe it is important to look at it in a vacuum. And setting it up, imagine you have all the information from OG Dragon Ball, you know, as you should, so that you can relate it to Z. And I do also want to say that I will be skipping around to different areas of Dragon Ball Z. So with this in mind, of course, we have to start with the very first episode and the twist that Goku is an alien. And this out of the gate, first episode off rip would have been a massive reveal, because it was, and it would have shaken it up both in universe like it did and in our real world. Can you imagine being on Twitter or YouTube or just any social media platform and you get the reveal that Goku, the character that you've been following for the past at least 5 years at this point, because OG Dragon Ball, the OG Dragon Ball series was 5 years long, was an alien. The character that you spent the past 5 years with was an alien. The closest we've gotten to something like this in the modern day is with Majula, which is very funny considering the whole Gojo versus Sukuna thing, and then there's the whole JJK fans not being able to read and Dragon Ball fans not being able to read. So it's like, I'll put the meme up, you guys will see it. And while nowadays it makes sense looking at the story retroactively, because Grandpa Gohan did find Goku in some random forest, and there's been little, sprinkles and tidbits throughout the story, where there's the Red Ribbon Army calling Goku straight up an alien with their scanners or something, and then there's Oolong saying it after the first Great Ape transformation that he saw. So this was a drastic change, and look at a story like Naruto. By the end of Shippuden, Kishimoto introduced the idea of aliens to the Naruto verse, and it was one of the most hated aspects of the Fourth Great Ninja War arc. And so much so that even to this day, regardless of quality, people refuse to watch Boruto due to this. And there's other reasons, but this is a major thing for people. And skipping around, I do want to talk about the ever iconic Super Saiyan transformation, because you can't make a Dragon Ball video without talking about the most iconic 30 plus years later after its introduction transformation of all time, the original Super Saiyan. And again, it has influenced so many series and the way that they do transformations in all forms of media, so you can argue with your mama about it. I think the only one up there that's given it competition, probably Sailor Moon, and I don't really count those as transformations, those are transformation sequences, but you know what I mean. It's not Gear 5, guys. Love Luffy, love One Piece, as you can tell from this channel, but it's not Gear 5. It's not touching Super Saiyan. Super cool transformation though. But the way this transformation was set up was honestly a masterclass in storytelling, in my opinion. For almost 100 chapters or 40 episodes in the anime, before it was properly introduced, no one knew what this was. It was always this thing that was being alluded to. So whether it was a proper transformation or just a title to be claimed remained to be seen. It was also had the added benefit of being tied to being the spiritual revenge of an entire race when it came to the fight against Frieza. And that's another thing I believe people downplay about Dragon Ball Z a lot, and that's the villains, bro. Like, Frieza was set up as a larger than life villain. He wasn't just someone Goku could overcome on his own. It took the efforts of the entire Z Warriors, including Vegeta at this point, who was still kind of their ops, to fight him. And by the end of it, it meant nothing because Frieza just went to his original form, his not perfect form, his final form, which is really just his base form. So all that fighting that they did for the past couple, I was gonna say 100, couple episodes, like, you know, tens of episodes, didn't matter. Frieza was used as the embodiment of evil in the series, and I remember genuinely having nightmares of him coming to Earth and just being his usual sadistic self, you know, no edgelord tactics or anything like that. And that's one of the things I think Toriyama also just doesn't get enough credit for, and that's being able to write a villain that can both be used in a gag but also be feared at the same time. And if anything, his twisted sense of humor does nothing but increase his fear factor, in my opinion, which leads me to my favorite arcs and favorite villains in all of Dragon Ball, which is Cell in the Cell Saga. Because I genuinely believe the Cell Saga is Toriyama's magnum opus. He's genuinely firing on all cylinders. Every character is relevant and receives some form of growth, even Yamcha. I'd argue this is where Yamcha really drops off the story. But there's also the mystery of alternate timelines, and most importantly, he's paying off things that he set up throughout the story to this point, all the way back in episode 1, looking at somebody like Gohan. And steering away from Goku, I want to look at Vegeta, because when he finally achieves Super Saiyan, like the first Super Saiyan, and whether you hate him or love him at this time, him ripping off Android 19's hands is one of the just coolest scenes in all of Dragon Ball, and I'm kind of mad that it's not, you know, respected more as being iconic. But it does make a little bit of sense because it is then followed up with one of the most humbling experiences from Android 18, breaking his, what is it, the left arm? I think it's the left arm, which really lets you know that things are getting serious, because I'm pretty sure this is this the first time his arm's injured like that? I think it happened just earlier in the story, but you know, the entire Cell mystery being in the background of the Android Saga 2 was just crazy looking back. You know, using time travel against the main group as a reflection of Trunks using it to save his own timeline was genius to me. It introduces the idea that time can fight back. And then moving on to Cell himself, having entire towns turn him missing with nothing but clothes left on the ground, like, it's like seeing the rapture in not real life, but seeing the rapture. It was this haunting thing. Imagine if in our real life right now, right? I mean, considering everything that's going on, I wouldn't be surprised. But this town, it's been there. This hustling, bustling town's been there this whole time. And somebody goes there to go check up on what's going on because they haven't heard from him in like a week or something. And there's nothing but clothes on the ground. Everything is still left intact. Nothing is destroyed. There's just people, no signs of them at all. No signs of human bodies at all. Do you understand how haunting and fearful of a thing that would be? You know, the way that he was portrayed as this parasite that had to leech off of not only living things, but literally steal fighting styles and moves from other characters, just reaffirms this idea of him being nothing but a mosquito, because, you know, mosquitoes can't survive without feeding off of your blood, at least the female mosquitoes. And then finally, there's the way that the Cell Saga ends. It pays off so many story beats and character arcs. There's Gohan finally living up to his full potential and surpassing Goku, becoming the protector of Earth. There's Vegeta's redemption arc, where he finally, you know, grows up and shows Trunks that he's actually has emotions for him and loves him. And there's him also apologizing to for the first time to Gohan. And I think the only other time this has happened was in the Buu Saga. I could be wrong, but I do know the only person Vegeta's actually ever properly apologized to, at least from my recollection, is Gohan. And there's just so many other aspects that I could talk about, but I don't want to make this video like crazy long. And I'll admit, I'm not going to talk about the Buu Saga, because I do believe that if Dragon Ball ended at the Cell Saga, it would genuinely be the perfect story. Like, everything is wrapped up just perfectly. It's like chef's kiss. But let's move on to the next section of the video. So the biggest and most obvious thing as to why I believe people think Dragon Ball Z has such bad storytelling is just because of how long it's been around, you know? I remember growing up and the Saiyan Saga up to the Cell Saga re-airing so many times on TV that at one point, I'm pretty sure I could like say the lines word for word, bar for bar, for at least a few episodes. So people do tend to simplify the story quite a lot due to this. There's also the DBZ abridged thing, where a lot of people take things that happened in abridged or that were said in abridged as actual things that happened in Dragon Ball, which no, don't do that. It didn't. And even abridged themselves have come out and say, hey, like, if you're going to partake in Dragon Ball, watch the original story as it was intended by Toriyama. We are not a replacement, which is crazy for them to have to say, because there are people who do watch DBZ abridged instead of Dragon Ball and think that they know what they need to know. No, you don't. Go watch the actual, go watch the actual anime. And they do have this opinion that all they do is fight, they get angry, they scream, they get more powerful with new transformations, and shoot lasers. And why do I know this? Because that's literally what Super has been for the most part up until like the Moral arc. And it's because Toei knew that this would sell. Like, that's all they were worried about. They knew that, oh, Dragon Ball, just give them new transformations, give them new fights, and give them new beam attacks, and then we fine. Give them fusions too while you're at it. And I've gone on record making an entire video about transformations being abused in Super. Link below, great video, check it out. But that's just how a lot of people view Dragon Ball as a whole. And I like to make the joke that people think Dragon Ball fans are the original Solo Leveling fans, but there's also the fact that lots of modern shonen tackle themes that Dragon Ball did, but better. And that makes sense. If you have something to refer to, you can avoid the same mistakes they've made, especially if those mistakes were heavily criticized. The author who comes after is always going to have the benefit of being able to improve on what their predecessors did. This doesn't take away from the fact that the first author was revolutionary in doing what they did though. And so many people have come and taken notes from someone like Shakespeare and improved on his work, but you don't really hear people downplaying Shakespeare, do you? Now, I'm not saying that Dragon Ball Z is some Shakespearean story, but you get the reference that I'm trying to make. Dragon Ball is looked at the way it is because people have had over 40 years to dissect the story in discussions and make videos exactly like this one. Maybe even worse. And I would admit, again, Super definitely didn't do it any favors. And there's also the meme about Dragon Ball fans not being able to read. And there's a lot of truth to this meme. I'm just gonna put that out there. But looking at Dragon Ball as a whole, it is important to know that there is a reason the story stood the test of time. Someone poured their entire creative soul into the story. It's not just a franchise or an IP for a company to make money, as much as they've tried to milk it to just be that. This was someone similar to me, a creative, someone similar to you, to us, in terms of putting their creative ideas out there for you guys, for us to enjoy. The story isn't perfect by any means, nothing is. And again, modern sequels have not done it any favors, but Akira Toriyama's pen just shouldn't be as disrespected as it is. And with all this out the way, I do urge you to go watch OG Dragon Ball first, and then, it'll give you a new appreciation of the story, especially when you get into Z. If you've only watched Z and Super, it'll give you a way more better appreciation of Z. And to Akira Toriyama, I do want to say thank you. You helped me make a lot of friends, friendships, and memories throughout my life with this story. There's so many memories that I have with my siblings and just friends running around outside and just even sitting inside just playing the game. One of my core memories from when I was like 5 or 6, I remember we had Dragon Ball Z Budokai on the PS2, right? And I remember we got up to the final fight with Frieza, and I just couldn't for the life of me beat Frieza. And let's not even start on that one mini game. I'm talking about the Raditz mini game. Oh my god, when you're trying to get him like Piccolo to do the special beam cannon. Oh my god, don't even get me started on that. So Akira Toriyama, thank you for putting your creativity out there. And rest in peace. You truly, truly touched and inspired so many people. And I probably wouldn't be making videos like these without you. But that's the video. You know, please continue liking, subscribing, and commenting what you guys think. And, you know, I'll see you in the next one. And I, as always, love you guys. Goodbye.